run, to scream, but where would she go? The nearest town was 20 miles through snow and wind. She had no money, no family, only this uncle who saw her as a burden to be sold. Clayton looked at her then. Just for a moment. It wasn't a leering look, but something quieter, an assessment, perhaps a flicker of pity. "The children need a woman's hand," he said at last, his voice deep and steady. "3 of them. The oldest is 8. She's good with young ones," Uncle Jeremiah lied easily. "Raised her sister's babe before the fever took them all." Laura bit her tongue. Every word was false, but her uncle was desperate to be rid of her. "I'm offering a fair trade," Jeremiah went on, sliding a paper across the table. "The deed to the 20 head of cattle my brother left her, plus the old mare. In exchange, you take her off my hands, legal and proper." Laura's heart sank. Those cattle were her only inheritance, her only chance at independence. But under the law, her uncle controlled everything until she married. Clayton studied the paper, then looked back at Laura. "Can you speak for yourself, miss?" he asked suddenly. Her uncle started to answer, but Clayton raised a hand. "I asked her." Laura straightened her back. "I can speak, read, write, and cipher. I can work from dawn to dusk, and I don't complain. I know herbs for healing and can shoot a rifle if I must." She hesitated, then added quietly, "Though it seems my wishes don't matter here." For the first time, something flickered in Clayton's eyes. Not warmth, but respect. "Hush, girl," Uncle Jeremiah barked. But Clayton had already reached for the pen. "She'll do," he said simply. Those 2 words sealed her fate. The pen scratched across paper, and with it, her freedom vanished. "Pack your things," Clayton said, standing. His voice was firm but not unkind. "We leave within the hour. The storm's getting worse." Laura climbed the ladder to her small loft room, her heart pounding. She gathered her few belongings, her mother's Bible, 2 plain dresses, a silver brush, and a small pouch of seeds from her mother's garden. Everything fit into a single carpet bag. From below, she heard her uncle's rough laughter. "Remember, girl," he called, "a wife's duty is obedience. You're his property now. Bought and paid for." Laura said nothing. She only clenched her jaw and whispered to herself, "Survive first, cry later." An hour later, she followed Clayton into the swirling snow. He helped her up onto his wagon without a word. 2 horses pawed at the frozen ground, their breath rising in white clouds. "That all you've got?" he asked. "Yes, sir." He nodded, climbed onto the bench beside her, and flicked the reins. "It's a day's ride to the ranch, maybe more in this weather. There are blankets behind the seat." Laura pulled one around her shoulders, staring ahead into the endless white. Behind her, the cabin grew smaller until it disappeared completely into the storm. They rode in silence. The wind screamed across the plains, and the wheels groaned through the drifts. At last, Clayton spoke. "The children," he said, his voice softer now. "Micah's 8, Eli's 6, and little Margaret's 3. Their mother passed 2 winters ago. Fever took her quick." "I'm sorry for your loss," Laura said quietly. He nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "They need someone. I can't raise them proper and run the ranch too, that's why." He hesitated. "That's why you bought me," Laura finished for him. His jaw tightened. "I didn't buy you. This is a business arrangement." "You traded cattle for me. How is that different?" He didn't answer right away. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Because I'm not expecting what most men would. You'll have your own room. This is for the children, nothing more." The relief that washed over Laura was mixed with confusion. She didn't know whether to be grateful or insulted. But she said nothing. The storm thickened until she could hardly see the horses ahead. Clayton steered them off the main trail. "There's a line shack up ahead. We'll shelter there tonight." When they reached it, the small cabin creaked under the wind, but it was solid. Clayton saw to the horses while Laura carried supplies inside. She found a stove, a narrow bed, and shelves lined with canned goods. By the time he came in, she had a fire going. "You're handy," he said. "I've had to be." They ate a simple meal of beans and biscuits. The silence between them was uneasy, but not cruel. After a long time, Clayton spoke again. I'm not looking for what I had with Hannah. I can't give that again. Laura nodded. I understand. I'll do my duty by your children. That's enough. He looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. Call me Clayton, he said finally. And I'm Laura, she replied. Outside, the wind howled, but inside the tiny shack, something fragile and new stirred in the quiet. The first spark of understanding between two lonely souls bound by circumstance and surviving the same storm. The Ward Ranch emerged from the melting snow like a weathered ship adrift on a white sea. Laura's first glimpse came as the wagon crested a hill and the valley opened before them, wide, cold, and beautiful in its loneliness. The main house stood solid and square, built of timber and stone, its roof heavy with snow. Smoke curled from the chimney, a sign of life in this frozen world. Home, Clayton said quietly, though Laura heard the weight behind the word. Her heart thudded as they drew near. Through a window, she caught sight of movement. Small faces pressed to the glass, peering out with wary curiosity. The children. The wagon stopped before the porch. Clayton climbed down first and offered his hand, his palm rough but steady. She hesitated only a second before taking it. The door opened, and 3 children appeared like a row of stair-steps. The oldest, Micah, had his father's sharp jaw and steady eyes. Beside him, Eli peeked out shyly, his hair a tangle of sandy curls. Little Rosie, Clayton had called her Margaret, but the child corrected him with fierce pride, clutched a rag doll, and stared at Laura without blinking. Children, Clayton said gently, this is Mrs. Ward. She's come to help take care of you and the house. Micah frowned. She's not our mama. No, Clayton said softly, but she's here now, and you'll show her respect. Rosie piped up suddenly, I'm Rosie. Margaret's only for church. Despite her nerves, Laura smiled. That's a pretty name, Rosie. The little girl said nothing, only clung tighter to her doll. Boys, bring in Mrs. Ward's things. Clayton ordered. Rosie, show her to the kitchen. The house was neat but empty of warmth. The parlor furniture sat too straight, too still. No curtains, no flowers, no sign of a woman's touch. Rosie led her through to the kitchen, a good-sized room with a large stove, shelves of canned goods, and a window that looked out over the frozen fields. Papa makes breakfast, Rosie announced solemnly. He burns the porridge. Eli won't eat it. Quote, well, Laura said kindly, maybe tomorrow we'll make something better. Can you make flapjacks? Rosie asked, eyes brightening for the first time. Mama made flapjacks with berries. Laura knelt down, smiling softly. I can certainly try. But at the mention of Mama, Rosie's smile faltered. Not supposed to talk about her, she whispered. Makes Papa sad. Before Laura could answer, Clayton appeared in the doorway. I'll show you to your room, he said. Upstairs, the hallway smelled faintly of pine soap. He pointed to the rooms as they passed. The boys share that one. Rosie's next to them. My... He paused before a closed door. That was Hannah's. You'll have the room at the end. It was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a quilt, a washstand, and a single window overlooking the valley. It felt more like her own space than anything she'd had in years. Dinner's at 6, Clayton said awkwardly. The children know the routine. Then he left her to settle in. Laura unpacked her few belongings, setting her mother's Bible on the nightstand and hanging her dresses neatly. She placed her silver brush on the table and tucked the small pouch of garden seeds safely away. For the first time since leaving her uncle's cabin, she exhaled. A knock came at the door. Eli stood there, skinny and solemn. Micah says, you're going to try to be our new mama, he said. Papa bought you 'cause he couldn't manage us right. Laura's heart ached. I'm not here to replace your mama, she said gently. Maybe we can just be friends instead. He tilted his head. Mama told stories. Do you tell stories? Sometimes, she said, about dragons and brave cowboys. Eli's lips twitched, the shadow of a smile. Maybe tomorrow. Then he darted away. The afternoon passed quietly. Laura explored the house, noticing the little things. A torn curtain hem, unwashed windows, shelves half empty. This was a house missing its heart. In what must have been Hannah's sewing room, she found baskets of mending left untouched. She sat down, threading a needle, grateful to have something to do. That's where Micah found her. "That was Mama's chair," he said sharply. Laura paused, meeting his eyes. "Would you rather I not use it?" Quote. He shrugged. "Don't matter. She's dead." The words were flat, but pain flickered behind them. "It must be hard," Laura said softly. He scowled. "I don't miss her." "Yes, you do," she said gently. "And that's all right." He didn't reply, but after a moment, he brought her one of his shirt's missing buttons. "If you're sewing, you might as well fix this." "Of course," she said quietly, and he left without another word. That evening, she cooked stew and baked fresh bread. The children arrived at 6 sharp, sitting neatly at the table. Clayton joined last, washing his hands at the basin before taking his seat. No one spoke for a while. Then Eli said softly, "It's good." "Of course it is," Rosie said proudly, though she was mostly chasing carrots around her bowl. Clayton nodded. "Thank you," he said simply. After dinner, while she washed the dishes, she found a note by the stove in his careful handwriting. "Coffee at dawn. Children eat at 7. List of supplies on pantry door." It was such a small thing, but her eyes stung. Maybe it was his way of welcoming her. Later, she heard his deep voice reading softly to Rosie by the fire. The boys worked at the table, their pencils scratching quietly. The house, that had felt so cold that morning, now seemed almost alive. When Rosie asked if Laura could tuck her in, Clayton hesitated, then nodded. As Laura sang a lullaby her own mother once sang, Rosie's eyelids fluttered. "You smell like lavender," the little girl murmured sleepily. "Mama smelled like roses." "Sleep now, sweet girl," Laura whispered. Downstairs, Clayton was banking the fire. "She hasn't let anyone else put her to bed since." He stopped. "Thank you." "They're good children," Laura said. "They just need time." He nodded. "So do I." That night, Laura lay awake in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the wind moaned across the plains. Inside, for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't dared feel in a long time. Hope. Spring came slowly to the Wyoming Valley, creeping over the frozen hills like a hesitant promise. Laura had been at the Ward Ranch for 6 weeks now, long enough to learn that healing a broken family took more than meals and mended shirts. It took patience and love and quiet courage. Every morning she rose before dawn to start the coffee and stoke the fire. She knew now that Micah liked his eggs runny, Eli preferred his separated, and Rosie refused milk unless it had a sprinkle of cinnamon. They were small things, but they mattered. That morning began like any other, until a harsh, choking cough split the air from upstairs. Laura froze, heart pounding. "Rosie!" she breathed, already running. She found the little girl sitting up in bed, cheeks flushed and eyes glassy with fever. Her breathing came in ragged gasps. "Papa," Laura called, her voice calm though her hands trembled. "Micah, ride to the barn. Fetch your father. Quickly." Quote. Eli hovered in the doorway, pale and frightened. "Bring me cool water and cloths," Laura told him. "Go now." Rosie whimpered as another cough racked her tiny body. Laura pressed a damp cloth to her forehead. "It's all right, sweetheart." "I've got you." Clayton burst in moments later, half-dressed and wild-eyed. When he saw Rosie struggling for breath, the color drained from his face. "How long?" "The fever came on in the night," Laura said quickly. "Her throat's closing. It's croup. We need steam. Lots of it." Clayton didn't hesitate. Together they worked without rest. Laura boiled water, covered Rosie's bed with sheets to trap the steam, mixed willow bark for fever, and kept the fire burning. Clayton held his daughter upright, whispering to her between coughing fits. Hours passed in a blur. Laura's arms ached, her eyes stung with smoke and exhaustion. But she refused to give up. When Rosie's breathing worsened, Laura took a desperate chance. She prepared a mustard poultice like her mother once had. "This will sting," she told Rosie softly. "But it'll help you breathe." Quote, Clayton's hand gripped Laura's shoulder as the child whimpered through the treatment. "You're sure?" Quote. "No," Laura admitted, "but I have to try." For a long, terrible minutes, nothing changed. Then, finally, Rosie's breathing steadied. The fierce wheeze softened to a slow rhythm. Her small hand reached for Laura's. "Mama," Rosie whispered faintly. Laura's breath caught. Clayton froze beside her. "I'm here, sweet girl," Laura said, her voice breaking. "I'm not going anywhere." By dawn, the fever had broken. Rosie slept peacefully, her skin cool and damp. Laura sagged into the chair, too tired to stand. Clayton knelt beside her. "You saved her," he said quietly. "You saved my little girl." "I just did what anyone would," she murmured. "No," he said firmly. "Not anyone. You fought for her like she was your own." Laura looked at him, seeing the tears he didn't bother to hide. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was no longer cold. It was full of something alive and tender. Over the next days, Rosie grew stronger. The boys helped without being asked. Clayton took his coffee in the kitchen now, staying close. The house felt different, warmer, as if some invisible wall had fallen. One evening, as the children played quietly by the fire, Laura stirred a pot of stew while Clayton mended harness straps at the table. "She called you, Mama," he said softly. Laura hesitated. "She was sick. She didn't mean—" "Yes," Clayton interrupted. "She did." Their eyes met, the truth hanging unspoken between them. That night, when Laura tucked Rosie in, the little girl caught her hand. "You stayed," she said sleepily. "Even when I was sick, you didn't go away." "Of course not," Laura whispered. "Then you're my mama now," Rosie decided, eyes closing. "For real." Laura sat there long after Rosie fell asleep, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Later she found Clayton waiting in the hallway. Without a word, he took her hand. "The fire's lit again," he said quietly. And it was, not just in the hearth, but in their hearts. Weeks passed, and with spring came new life across the ranch. Flowers bloomed, cattle grazed, and laughter filled the house once more. The children began calling her Mama Laura. Not just Rosie, all of them. Even Micah, shyly at first, then proudly. Clayton watched it all with quiet awe. One evening he came to her in the barn, his hat in hand. "I need to say this plain," he said. "When you came here, I thought I was doing a practical thing, hiring help, nothing more. But you've given us back our lives. You've given me back my heart." Laura felt her breath hitch. "Clayton!" He stepped closer. "I don't deserve you, Laura, but I love you. God help me, I do."